Strategist Antoine C. Wright, our Democratic strategist. Let's begin with the governor's State of the State address. Any surprises, Antoine?
No, look, congratulations to Henry McMaster, officially our state's longest serving governor. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, I think that's something to be applauded. Many have tried, few have succeeded. He's been the only one, so I applaud him on that. Look, I don't agree with the governor politically on much, but I do think that he did what he thought was in the best interest of South Carolina along the way, and even at times working across the aisle in a bipartisan way to get stuff done. Now, with that being said, I would hope that in this upcoming election season that the Republican majority who controls the House, the Senate, and every statewide constitutional officers would turn the page a bit and focus on the challenges that really fix our state, because if they're going to be fixed, it's going to be up to the Republicans.
It's going to be up to the Republicans. It's going to be up to the people who are going to be left in leadership. This was a speech about legacy. Henry McMaster has, I'll say this, Henry McMaster has wanted to be governor of South Carolina for as long as I've known him, and that's been more than 30 years. He has now served in that position going on 10 years, and he spent tonight making sure that South Carolinians understood this is where we came from. This is how we've gotten here. We've got to do something to continue the legacy. But this was a legacy speech.
I also think that two things. Cosmetically, the governor wore a purple tie. I'm a fundamental believer that he wants to go out being known as a bipartisan figure in some ways. That's number one. But number two, I think the governor understands, or now understands even more, that he has limited power as the chief executive of this state. We are a legislative-heavy state, so there's not much policy proposals or agendas he can do other than by way of executive orders. And so I think his pitch, outgoing pitch, was furthermore, try to do what you can from a General Assembly standpoint, and I'll meet you where you are.
Right, because he has spent all of this time working on things that he talked about tonight. The economic development. Economic development is one of the key responsibilities of the governor of this state. What's been done for the water and our conservation, what's being done for farmland, what's being done to protect the aesthetics and why we call South Carolina home. He takes a lot of pride in,
But I would also add, it's been 10 years, and South Carolina still last in things we should be first in, or at the bottom of the things we should be at the top in, and at the top of things we should be bottom in. Now, I'm personal friends with the governor. I respect him, but I don't think he did enough in terms of pulling South Carolina out of the mud when having an opportunity, whether it's healthcare, whether it's furthering our state's infrastructure, whether it's tourism, whether it's recruiting job and industry to the consequential deep, dark pockets of rural South Carolina, or furthermore, whether it's just separating the national politics and the local politics and making certain that all of South Carolina and every South Carolinian enjoys the same opportunity. I don't think the governor did the best job there.
I think the focus of Governor McMaster, especially in these last two terms that he has had, the two full terms that he's had after Nikki Haley left office and he ascended to the governor's office, it has been about economic development. It's been about bringing jobs, bringing companies, companies large, companies small, coming into South Carolina. I mean, think about it, folks. If you can drive in it, if you can float in it, you can fly in it, it rolls on the ground. We make it in South Carolina. So we are very dependent upon those industries, and it has been a major focus of the governor. We moved from being a textile state to really a transportation state, and that has been, for by and large, the work of Henry McMaster working on economic development in this state.
For 4 years, Governor McMaster enjoyed the Biden-Harris administration sending resources, thanks to Jim Clyburn, to South Carolina to uplift South Carolina, now known as the battery capital of the world. We had strong investments in our state's infrastructure, thanks to the infrastructure bill that came out of Washington. I mean, there are many accounts that I can point to that thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, there were no cuts to programs and dollars in South Carolina. Fast forward the tape, the Trump administration has done their best job to cut funding, cut programming, and cut things that many South Carolinians need for survival. And so you have to put that as part of the governor's tenure as something that made him viewed successful and otherwise. But also to that point, I don't think the governor in this current form has done enough to fight for South Carolina to the Trump administration. You think about, from a healthcare perspective, you think about 50,000 South Carolinians will not have access to a child care grant. And after the big nasty bill is implemented, South Carolina will face a $100 million deficit when it comes to SNAP benefits in the state. That's life or death for many people.
This is a responsibility that are two different viewpoints. Is this the government's responsibility to do this, or is it individuals' responsibility? To Antoine's point, and we have talked about this on the air so many different times, there is a role for government in what we do. And this is Henry McMaster stepping back and saying, we've taken care of this place we call South Carolina. I think to Antoine's point, when it comes to the people of South Carolina, he views it from the standpoint of, we brought in jobs, we've brought in economic development, we have cut your taxes. And from his standpoint, that then leaves the responsibility to the individual. And that's been the major difference. And we've talked about this on the air between how the Republicans are viewing this and the Democrats.
I want to talk about the Democratic response tonight. Jermaine Johnson here in Richland County, who is running for governor, basically said here, you've got 22 years of one-party rule in South Carolina. We've got some of the worst roads in the country out there. We've got some of the worst pay in the country, some of the worst health care out there. Is this something we're going to hear between now and the primaries? I mean, he is running for the Democratic nomination.
Look, I hope we hear it. I hope we hear it over and over. I actually think we'll hear some of this in the Republican primary. Why? Because men and women lie, numbers do not. The fact of the matter is, everything Representative Johnson said about what we face in terms of a crisis in South Carolina is true. And fundamentally, the Republican majority in the state has not offered or passed any solution to deal with those things. And you can agree with Democrat versus Republican. We can have that conversation any day, all day. However, when one party has the ability to change the narrative and they do not, you have to just say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
I will agree with you to a point on this, though, Antoine, because you and I have both worked in and dealt with the legislative process. Mm-hmm. They are in session for 18 weeks, 54 days total, twice in the 2-year term. And in that time period, they have been working on certain things. The liquor liability issue that affects, Antoine, 5,000 businesses that have closed. We're talking workers that are in the entertainment industry, that are in the restaurant industry. That affects everyday men and women from Swansea to Lexington to all these other communities across the state.
Let's put a pin right there. I agree with you. That's an issue. That's an issue the Republican majority decided to take up last year. What happened for the 22 or the 21 other years when we've had serious challenges with access to health care, with education, with teacher pay, with state employee pay, you name it.
But teacher pay is reaching the highest level in the Southeast.
Dave, listen to me. Well, thanks to the Democrats pushing the initiative.
The few Democrats that are in there and the Republicans that have been pushing this hard.
It wasn't a vision of the Republicans, it was a vision of Democrats. Republicans
that McMaster took the flag with
my
and
point
ran
is,
with.
21 years of neglect. And now we're talking about what they've done in a year. We can't call that success.
Antoine, it's been more than a year when we've been having the discussion.
Thing they've done. Name one thing Republican majority and or the governor has done in terms of healthcare, infrastructure, and so forth, where real South Carolinians can feel the change. I'm not talking about, inside the Beltway change. Real South Carolinians can feel the change.
Teachers in the classroom, school resource officers, the money devoted so that our starting teacher pay this year will be $50,500, which is the highest in the Southeast.
While you say that, gas, groceries, electricity, we're not keeping up with the cost of living in our state. Nobody retires and moves up north. We are being flooded in this state with other people who are pushing our state's infrastructure. The raise they've gotten does not make the pay competitive for other careers.
We can go on and on.
Yeah, Representative Johnson mentioned a couple of other things that have, it kind of clicks with some South Carolinians. Medical marijuana, nothing's been done about that in South Carolina. And also gaming in South Carolina. We've got the state lottery for education, but the governor has been dead against having any other form of gambling in South Carolina. Are these two issues that are going to resonate with voters later this year?
I think for some. I also think they're going to be contentious or heavy talking about issues in the Democratic primary. on the Republican side. I think they're going to be used as a weapon of mass destruction and distraction by someone on that side. And so I think this is turned into a us versus them, D versus R conversation. So we'll see what the general election has. But we're going to have to figure out how to create revenue in our state, and we're going to have to keep up with other states, our neighbors, brothers, and sisters, when it comes to things like medical marijuana.
Well, you take a look at the issue of gambling in South Carolina. You look at the fact that the Lumbee tribe, just across I-95, if you've ever been up I-95, across south of the border, you're in Lumberton, North Carolina. They just set aside 241 acres to put a casino 10 miles from the South Carolina border. Well, we know the Two Kings Casino that's up near Rock Hill, they turn around and 40% of the license plates at that casino are South Carolina license plates, which means that we have people from this state that are going to another state, giving them tax dollars when we could